I'm a Nimrod. I what a great way to start the episode. I used the wrong intro. Oops. My bad.
Nobody noticed.
Oh, well, I'm an English major.
Bloopers.
Right, bloopers. Yeah.
For the content.
Anything for the content, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 81 of Restitching the Tapestry. It's great to have you all here. It's still strange thinking that we are in the 80s now of our episodes, but I'm loving it. We're inching closer to 100. So tonight we are going to be talking about ableism, and I have, of course, my wonderful guest co-host Heather Kanicki here with us. And my wonderful friend Lacy here with us for the first time ever. Hello, Lace.
Hi.
It's great to have you here.
It's good to have you here too.
Thank you.
It's always good to see your face.
I know. So let's first and foremost share how we've been doing and what we have been up to. Heather, you go first.
Oh, what have I been up to? Well, I just recently got back from one of my bucket list events. I went to Salem, Massachusetts last week with my parents. So yeah, amazing trip. The drive home was kind of sucky. We were in the car for 23 hours straight, and my dad argued with the GPS the entire way home. Long story. But other than that,
sounds like a dad.
Yeah, I had a great time. I even got to make my own broom. I was so excited. Yeah, I'm such a crafty, nutty, geeky person like that. I loved it. I made you pick your own broom corn and you wrap it and you put your little ornaments on it and everything was so cool. So
that's amazing.
I'll guess that later. But other than that, I've spent the entire week. This week, though, playing catch up at work. You ever notice when you go on vacation and you come back, seems to be 45 more things, that you have to do.
What's a vacation?
Yeah, what's a vacation? So that's me.
Lacy, your turn.
I've been doing good lately. I had major knee surgery back in November, and I'm still healing and recovering from that, but I'm doing good with that. I don't really do much, but I've been going to PT 3 times a week. That's pretty much just like my social, like outside of social media. I've been streaming a little bit on Twitch. I play games. I stream games for people and just to enjoy the community that I kind of have and mutual friends, and we just all have fun playing stuff together. So that's me.
What's your Twitch handle so everybody can go follow you?
My Twitch handle is LacyRakastan. It's Lacy, Lacy, and then it's Rakastan, Rakastan.
There you go, everybody. Go follow Lacy.
And Rakastan means love in Finnish.
Oh, I didn't know.
I actually never knew that. Never knew that.
I got it from Adam Lambert and Sully.
Oh, God.
Okay.
That's like kind of how Lacy and I bonded with our friendship over the musician Adam Lambert, because if you know what I mean.
Hang on, honey, I'll fan you.
Oh, thank you. I need it.
You're welcome.
Oh, wait, I have cold water here.
Well, me and Donny have actually known each other since we were little. Like I've known him since he was in kindergarten. We rode the same bus together all through school, so it's like I've known him my whole life. So
I know. Isn't it
I'll have to
mind-boggling?
talk later.
Right? So
I want to hear
like
all about little Donny in kindergarten.
Oh, little Donny was so cute.
Little Donny was obnoxious.
Oh, he's adorable.
But like one of my first memories is just riding the school bus with you and us laughing at everything. Like it was amazing.
Didn't you say like your first like memory of me was like my laugh?
Yes. Because I think all of us have like very pronounced laughs, but Lace, when you really get laughing, it is amazing.
I have what they call the Carver laugh, and I'm just like, no.
It's amazing. So let's see who's tuning in this evening with us. So RB is here. Hello. Taylor is here. And Taylor made it on time. Yay. And so did Leo. Leo's here too. It's great to see you. Taylor is excited that you went to Salem, Heather, but she's like, those gas prices, though. Can imagine. Yeah.
That was crazy. I think the cheapest we bought gas was $4.99. We're like, oh my God, it's a bargain.
Oh, that was a bargain.
Oh my goodness.
Other places were paying like $5.12. So for a gallon of gas, my God.
Yeah, that's horrifying.
Yeah, it was worth every penny though, because it was my mom's trip for celebrating her recovery from cancer. So I would have paid $10 a gallon. Don't care. No.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's so worth it.
We just won't eat for a month. Don't care. Whatever.
See, I don't know if I'd be able to do that because you know how I feel about eating. So Leo says, I'm doing great here too, buying and foraging for so many crystals. Leo's been collecting gorgeous crystals. Love it. Lagiacris is here. I'm so glad that I can pronounce your name now. Remember how I used to stumble over it so badly? I used to be like, Lagicris. It was really bad. And Leo says, I just recently bought a 3-inch blue quartz orb. Ooh, gorgeous.
Ooh.
Love it. So, okay. Tonight's episode is about ableism, which is not a top. I mean, we've like maybe mentioned it here or there, but we've not really talked about it at length. So we wanted this episode to really, really focus on that subject. And Lace, as a person who has had to deal with ableism constantly throughout your life, I figured that I would tap into your expertise and your experiences in order to kind of help us understand like how, like, I mean, we're aware of what ableism is, but those of us who are not affected by ableism can't really fully understand like the smaller aspects. To us, they might be small, but to those affected, they're not, right? I'm getting ahead of myself before we get too much further. Getting excited, I'm sorry. I'm going to go over our show's mission statement. How could I forget that? What is wrong with me?
You're just excited.
There's going to be a lot of bloopers from this episode. All right. We live in a dynamic society where social media shapes us by creating greater opportunities for connection. It has led to a developing understanding of the adversity many marginalized communities face, the powers causing the adversity, and those who act as bystanders as atrocities take place in real time. Our goal with this show is to make connections and have challenging conversations about social topics, current events, pop culture, and art. So together, let's weave the threads of understanding with what privilege we have in order to learn, educate, and create in a world that's growing. Yay. Oh, Ari's not here to do praying hands. So Lace, Ari is known for like doing this when we do the mission statement. So, okay. So let's begin. I think obviously the first step that we need to cover is defining what ableism is, because in the different conversations that I've had about ableism, most people are kind of taken aback because they hear the word and they're just like, what? I don't really understand what that means. Of course, those being people with privilege who aren't affected by it, right? So according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, ableism is defined as discrimination or prejudice against individuals with disabilities. Now, there are many different layers and contexts when it comes to ableism. And we'll talk about a few of them tonight, but obviously there are many other ones out there outside of our spheres of experience that we won't cover because we don't have those experiences, right? So just checking out the comments really quick. Taylor says, I've only faced a touch of ableism when I've been glared at for using my cane as a woman in her mid-20s. Yes. Kaisana's here. Hello. Kaisena says, I do have some internalized ableism that I'm working on getting rid of. Ooh, that could be something that we talk about a little bit later, about what internalized ableism could mean. So, Lace, there's a lot to cover here.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about ableism. How, like, talk about your experiences. How have you been affected by ableism?
Well, first I want to say that I was born 3 months early, and as a result of that, I have cerebral palsy, spastic diplegia cerebral palsy. It affects your motor movements, and it's basically like brain damage in a way. Like, it affects your cerebral cortex and all the motor movements and all that kind of stuff. So I was very lucky, and there's very different versions of cerebral palsy. It's kind of like an umbrella term, So I've literally been disabled my whole life. So this is all I know. My wheelchair is all I know, really, so you want me to talk about like what is ableism to me, or?
Well, like, yeah, like talk about what ableism is to you and then different examples of ableism that you've experienced like in just day-to-day
Okay.
life. Yeah.
Mostly it's an everyday thing for me. If I go out of my house, it's an everyday thing. It's like if I go ride the bus or in somebody's car, like, will I be able to get into their car? Will the bus have a lift? Bathrooms, do they have grab bars? Are the stalls big enough? I mean, I've went into bathrooms that say they're accessible, but yet the stall is like wide. You can get your chair in there, but you can't close the door to get up and stand up and get on the toilet. It's like that's not that's not accessible at all. Venues, concerts. I'm big into concerts. I love going to concerts, but a lot of venues ideas of accessibility is not accessible. A lot of like the seating is like far away, and they'll usually have people right in front of you. So like if you're sitting in a wheelchair, you're not going to be able to see anything. And I've experienced that I don't know how many times. Like I always make sure I check what venue the artist is going to, and if I know the venue and if it's good, I'll go to it. If it's not, then I don't like to, because I'm not going to be able to see. Like just every day going into a store, like let's say you go to the mall and it says, oh, it's got that little handicap sign on the window. Well, most times it's not accessible. There's racks of clothes everywhere, and the aisles are super tiny. Like you can't really get around in them. Like just dealing with like even sidewalks with steps and ramps, and people don't really think about that on their day-to-day life, because a lot of people don't have to think about that, but that's like my everyday thing. So
Right. I think what, like, additionally, and because obviously, like, I lived with you for 3 years, so I had opportunities to see this all the time, right? And of course, in being your friend, like, I'm aware of those things too, but what upsets me a lot would be situations like when we go to the store, like people asking you like invasive, frankly inappropriate questions. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. I've had people come up to me and be like, what's wrong with your leg? Or why are you in a wheelchair? Like, I don't mind that kind of stuff, but like, I don't know, like just stares and people just coming up just rudely kind of be like, well, why are you in the wheelchair? Or my favorite part is when they talk to whoever I'm with, like I don't exist. Like I'm stupid and I can't understand what they say. Like I'll give an example with my ex-wife. She was technically my caregiver, but she was also my wife, and we would go to the store together, and I can't tell you how many times people have looked at her and talked about me in front of myself to her and was like, oh, it's so nice that you're being a caregiver for her, blah, blah, blah. Like and I'm just like, excuse me, I'm right here. Like, that's my wife. Like, she's my caregiver second. Like, I don't even see it as that, And I don't know, like, I don't really blame like little kids when they stare or like they wonder. They're like, mommy, that girl's in a wheelchair. Like that doesn't really bother me, but it's funny when I'm with my family and my friends. Donny can attest to this. He notices stares more than I do. My sister has noticed stares more than I do, and they get so defensive. And they're like, that person better quit.
Yeah, I'll go like...
Yeah, honestly, I don't even notice it most of the time because I ignore it. Like, I go about and I do my thing, but people are going to stare, you know? And it's just funny because a lot of people think of people in wheelchairs being people that can't talk, that, you know, are frankly drooling on themselves, that are very helpless and can't do anything. They, you know, it's just like they don't understand that a person can be very intellectual and still have a disability, and they can still do stuff for themselves, but they don't understand that they may do something, but it may be a little bit different than how a regular person does it, you know?
Right. Yeah, I think the big problem is that there's so many, like, I mean, we know that there's stereotypes with everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
But because of the lack of education, there are a lot of stereotypes and just frankly a lack of knowledge that people have when it comes to the fact that, like, disability comes in so many different forms.
Oh, it does,
right?
definitely.
Like a person might be nonverbal, but they still may be able to communicate. A person might use a wheelchair, but that doesn't mean, you know, that doesn't like make them less than in any way, you know.
Right.
Whereas like people are kind of conditioned to exert this pity, you know. And I've never faced this myself, but to me, if I were to like empathetically place myself in someone's shoes, like I would find that very unsettling and insulting.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm trying to think of an example. I kind of remember, but I don't know exactly what she said, but I remember I went to Target on Black Friday with my sister, and like this employee just basically like, she was trying to be nice. Like she thinks she was being nice, but the way she said it and the way it came out, I'm like, really? Like, that's not, I feel like people are like, oh, well, I'm just going to comment on your disability and make, oh, are you okay? Like, treat you like you're a child or you're, you know, infantile, like all that kind of thing. I don't like it, you know, and it's like, I have a brain of my own. Like, you know, or, you know, there's a lot of times where people will ask me, how did you break your leg? Or why are you in the wheelchair? Because they don't think I have a disability because I look normal, you know, and I have to tell them, no, I have cerebral palsy. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, you know, because I mean, a lot of people think about people with cerebral palsy being a lot, having it worse than I do, you know? So I don't know. It's just,
it comes back to that knowledge base, right? Like, just, I mean, people don't even know what cerebral palsy even means.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a coworker who was born with MS, and it was a pretty severe case. He'd been an amigo his entire life, and people would look at him as being less, like he couldn't do his job just because he was an amigo. And, you know, I always wanted to say to him, if anybody does that to you, I just want you to say 2 words: Stephen Hawking.
Yeah, exactly. That man was amazing.
Right.
Exactly.
Really amazing. He was such an icon in the disabled community. Like, honestly, like, he really is, because he proves that you can be fucking. Sorry.
No, you can say it.
You can be there's that word right now, honey.
You can be so freaking smart, you know, and still have your disability. And like, he did so much, you know, and he was a genius. Yeah. So people are ignorant, and I don't think they mean to be, but I feel like people need to educate themselves a little bit more.
I mean, I think there's a certain point where people are also old enough to inform themselves to,
right?
Like granted, this could just be me. I think it's very basic decorum to not look at somebody and be like, what's wrong with you? Like, it's none of your business.
Yeah. Right. You know, like, why does it matter to you? Like, it's just funny because even to this day, I still have people that come up to me and ask that. And honestly, I don't get offended, but it does kind of irritate me. And, it depends on what mood I'm in that day too. Most times I'm just like, I have cerebral palsy, and they just look at me like, oh, well, I don't know what that is. And I'm like, well, it doesn't matter. You know what it is. You don't even know me.
And I bet having to even explain it also gets exhausting after a time.
It does. It really does.
So I do want to catch up on the chat. Tiffany is here. Hello, Tiffany.
Hi,
it's good to see you. LacyRakastan says, I don't know if I've ever experienced ableism at all, despite being both on the autism spectrum and having ADHD. Taylor says, so many times, it's such a simple fix. How hard is it to put in a ramp or bar?
Oh, can I
Amen.
Amen.
Yeah, of course, Heather.
Okay, Taylor, honey, I completely freaking agree with that. One of the places that I've worked in the past, I had another person that, he was an amigo as well. And we needed him to be able to get into our office. So we specifically asked for them to install one of the push buttons so he could get in and out of without our help, He's not an infant. He just needs a button.
Right.
We were given a little rubber door jamb that we were supposed to keep the door open for. We can't do that in our office because of the privacy laws and stuff. You can't leave our door open. So they wouldn't install it for him. And we were told that, we have followed all of ADA's protocols, and all they request is that we do the buttons on the outside doors. How does that help him go to the bathroom? Thank you.
Aren't the see what confuses me? Aren't the bathrooms, don't they have automated doors? Some of the bathrooms?
You go into a lot of places. I mean, basically every place. There is, like Delta College is really good with the buttons, once they're, but like, you own a restaurant, there's no buttons to get to the bathroom. You gotta pull the door open, and you gotta push it open when you're done. And like I said, like, they can have that little handicap sign on there, accessibility sign, but is the bathroom really accessible? Like, I always, if I have somebody with me, like my mom or something, I'm always asking her, like, can we go check the bathroom to see if it's big enough for my wheelchair? Because people's ideas of the accessibility are not accessible. These little tiny stalls with wide doors does not mean it's accessible, So it's amazing the buildings and the stores and just everywhere that I go to that don't have those buttons to get inside or out, So
yeah, it's ridiculous. So checking on more of the comments, Kaisena says, people have called me lazy for having poor executive functioning. Oh my goodness. And says that people just don't want to spend the needed funds to prove authentic, proper accommodations and accessible access. Yes, that's true. Kaisena also says, I get so angry when I see people being ableist. It's not right. And then said that I had somebody actually try to take my white cane because they thought I was faking. That is
horrendous. My God.
That is ridiculous.
Honey, you whacked them with it.
There are invisible disabilities.
Thank you.
Every single day there's invisible. They can look normal to you, but if they have a disability, they have a disability. What is it? The other person can't say, oh, you don't look disabled, you don't have a disability. No. Do you live my life? No, you don't. So you don't know what I deal with from day to day, and I feel like that's just so wrong.
Yeah, it's that lack of empathy, right? Like when that lack of empathy is present, like, people just don't think about that basic, like, put myself in somebody else's shoes kind of thing. Leo says, my sister said when she visited Baltimore, almost all the buildings were extremely hostile towards disabled individuals. No ramps whatsoever, or whatever. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's sad. Taylor says ableism has stopped some people who need accommodations from taking it too because they don't want to live with it. Yep. And then Taylor recommends Annika Victoria, a great YouTuber who happened to be disabled, and she helped me learn so much about being a young disabled person navigating the world. I'll have to check out that YouTube.
I want to write the name down. So don't click just yet.
Oh, I won't click yet.
Thank you.
Annika Victoria.
Annika Victoria. That name sounds kind of familiar.
I wonder if I heard about her. Did we hear about her in some of our trainings at work? Maybe.
It's possible. It's possible. Kaisena says listening to those who have who actually experience disabilities is best than listening to those self-proclaimed experts who work with disabled individuals. Right. Over the past 4 years, there have been a lot of self-proclaimed experts on everything. Right.
Don't even get me started on experts in healthcare.
That leaves it wide open. You should talk about it.
Yeah. No, I want to hear.
As I mentioned earlier, I had major surgery back at the end of November. So for the whole month of December and a week in January, I was in rehab, 2.5 hours away from family. I wanted to be placed into rehab because I knew that I would need help with stuff because my parents can't do all that, like I wasn't able to put weight on my leg. So I wanted to find ways of being able to do it and like learning how to do it and adapting to what I needed to adapt to. And what I experienced at that place is complete. I can't think of the word.
Bullshit.
Complete bullshit, but they're not. What's the word? I think it starts with a C.
Compliant.
Nope. I don't know what the word is, but it's basically they claim that they know how to do something and then they don't. Incompetent. That's what it is.
Oh, yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Completely incompetent. Like, I literally had to teach these Cenas how to use a transfer board from the bed to the wheelchair. They've never done one before. And I'm like, how have you never done one before? You work with old people every day because it was a rehab/nursing home. Like, it was crazy to me. Just the lack of know-how. And I experienced that all the time in the medical field. And you think that they would be the most understanding of people that have disabilities or issues or mobility issues. I don't know, like that place was just a complete nightmare to begin with, but let's just say I had to teach a lot of people a lot of things.
You shouldn't have had to be in that position.
No.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm like, really? Like, honestly, it's not hard. Like, I felt glad to have to teach them because now they know that that's a way to transfer and like all that stuff. Like, but I deal with that every day, like in the medical field. Like, you would think a hospital would be accessible. It's not. It's totally not accessible because their beds are way too high.
Yep.
Like, I went into pre-op twice, because I had those 2 surgeries. And every time they're like, okay, get undressed and get in this gown and get on the bed. Okay. Like, I needed help a little bit the first time to get on the bed.
Let me snap a finger and just do that.
Yeah.
But then when I had to go in for my second surgery, they looked at me. I had my cast or my brace on, my leg wrapped up, all propped up in my leg rest. And they're like, okay, you're going to need to put this gown on and get on the bed. Can you do that? I'm like, does it look like I can do that? I'm like, I strictly have orders not to put weight on this leg. I cannot put weight on this leg, and I have cerebral palsy on top of it. And I can't just shimmy my way to the bed or on the bed. Plus, the bed's way too high. Like, you literally have to like prop yourself up on the bed if you have short legs. I have short legs, So they were all in a huff and a puff, and they're like, are you sure you can't stand even with the walker to like get in the bed? At that point, I started bawling my eyes out. Like, I started crying because I was so frustrated. I was like, really? Like, you guys, you get a lift. They have lifts that, they put little things underneath you and they lift you up into the air onto the bed. And I requested one of those and they're like, we don't know if we have one on this floor. I'm like, well, go get one.
Yeah, find one.
Yeah, and they just acted like it was so inconvenient to have to use a lift to get me out of my wheelchair and onto the bed. But I'm like, that's your job. That is your job as a medical professional, to be able to help people. Like, it's not that hard.
Well, like, you would think after having a major surgery, that would be like very basic understanding, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And it just makes me sad that you had to go through that. It makes me irate, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. Kaisena loves your tattoos, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Taylor says, speech impediments are the prejudice I work on fixing in myself. I think we're talking about internalized ableism, right? I was raised to think less of people with impediments, and I work hard on shutting that down now. Yeah, like a lot of that internalized ableism is like that conditioning, right? That
yeah. That's from what they're taught from other, their parents or other generations.
Mm-hmm.
Older generations.
Kaisena says, same here. When I see other autistic people stim, it makes me uncomfortable, but I've long grown to accept it now, right? And then Kaisena says, infantilizing and inspiration porn is the worst. We're actually going to talk about inspiration porn here in just a moment. Let's see. Kaisena says, infantilizing disabled individuals should be a crime. Saying someone has the mind of a 2-year-old when they are 24 is wrong and unethical.
Mm-hmm.
Could not agree more.
Mm-hmm.
Kaisena says, I have a YouTube channel that I'm hoping to put more disability content on. Yes.
Ooh,
yes,
that's great.
That's awesome.
And Kaisena, I still want to have you on here to chat about it too. Let's see. Tiffany says, just recently at my stay out of state at an upscale hotel, I texted Lacy and was like, this bed is bullshit. It's so high. And it was labeled an accessible room. Oh my God. So Lacy, I attribute this to your patience and your educating, because now like people in your life, like wherever we go, we're just like, that's not accessible.
Yeah.
That's not accessible.
I love it because my best friends, Donny and Tiffany, they know. Like now they think about that stuff. They probably didn't think about it before as much as they do now, but they're like, Lacy couldn't get over that step. Is there a ramp? How does she get in there? How's she going to get on that bed? Like all those kinds of things. And I really appreciate it because it's not just me thinking about it anymore.
Well, right. And it shouldn't have to just be people who are disabled thinking about those things. Like, and the truth is, like, it shouldn't have to be people in the disabled community doing all the educating all the time either. It's kind of similar to what we've been talking about with regard to like marginalizing and against other communities, right? Like it shouldn't be the responsibility of that marginalized community to always have to do the educating. Like there is a point where allies have to actually learn what they need to learn and actually teach as well, right?
Yeah.
Of course, not overshadowing the voices in the community though, but with the voices.
I can't tell you how much anxiety I have when I have to go somewhere new. I deal with that all the time. I suffer from depression and anxiety, and going to a brand new place freaks me out because I don't know what it's going to be like. They can say it's accessible, but is it accessible? Probably not.
Right.
Yeah. You don't really know until you see it, or if there's like a virtual tour or something.
Right. Like, and I'll give you an example. Me and Tiffany are supposed to go to a concert next month in July. And we've never been to this venue before. I've never been to this venue. So I don't know what it's like. I don't know if the seats are good. I don't know if I'm going to be able to see. That's worrisome. I wonder, are the bathrooms accessible? Am I going to be able to get on the toilet if I need to? And then we want to stay in a hotel so we don't have to drive back late at night. And it's like, am I even going to be able to get on the bed? It's funny, but it's sad at the same time.
Well, and it's like, And it's really alarming when it's sprung on you, like right at a moment's notice. You remember when we went and saw Adam Lambert a few years ago? We had VIP tickets, so we were meeting him.
Oh yeah, tell them about that
Oh
experience.
yeah. So we were at, was it the Fillmore in Detroit?
Yes, the Fillmore.
We were at the Fillmore, which is a smaller concert. It's like a what is it called?
It's like more like an intimate venue, and it was one of those buildings that were built before all the ADA laws. So they don't generally need to change it. They don't need to. That's just
right.
the law.
Well, okay, so in order to meet him, we had to go down like below the stage, which is hella not accessible.
In the basement, down a flight of stairs.
Oh, God.
It was like
no elevator.
It was 2 or 3 flights of stairs, actually. So like we get there and you're with us, and we're like, the tour guides tell us like, oh, here's what you're gonna do, and we're like, so how was Lace gonna actually?
Yeah.
So Adam actually came up to see Lacy, but it was like in this cubby closet thing.
Yeah, they like crammed
side stage.
Literally like a side stage room that was tiny. Like I could barely get my wheelchair into it.
Wow.
And I had this ugly ugly yellow ass wall when all the other fans got this gorgeous Adam Lambert backdrop for their photo. And I get like a yellow pea color of a wall.
I mean, your photo did turn out surprisingly well, but like it's still
like
like
urine yellow wall, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, Lacy is colored in urine right now. How lovely.
Did it make his complexion pop though? The urine yellow.
God, I can't even explain how gorgeous he was in person.
Yeah. Ooh, I'm getting warm already.
Okay. Fan again.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, like Donny has witnessed things like that with me several times. Like the one example of us going to the Matchbox 20 concert. Remember that?
Oh my God.
We got accessible seating, but apparently we got the standing accessible seating.
Whatever standing accessible means.
So thank you. Please define that for me.
I don't know. I don't know exactly what that is, but apparently for people with disabilities that can stand. Like,
maybe people with walkers, perhaps, or something like.
But still, like, you know, if you have a disability, you're probably going to want to sit down at some point, you know. And of course, I'm in the wheelchair. I can't stand for more than a minute usually, you know, without getting tired or worn out. And we had to leave I told them, I said, this really sucks because I've always wanted to see Matchbox 20, but the opening acts were on. I literally could not see. People were standing up in front of me, and they would not trade my ticket for the accessible seating ticket.
Yeah, and they were very unreasonable.
There were faces. And they wouldn't give me like a better seating choice. Like we went to the people that work there, and they're like, oh, we can't do that. Sorry.
Yeah, and we ended up leaving early. We didn't even.
Your money is just as good as somebody else's.
Right.
You have the right to see that.
Look at her now, man.
Well, it comes back. It comes back to like just it's like people don't want to bother. Like it's like they don't want to make the effort, right? Which just dumbfounds.
So that was very disappointing, and it kind of broke my heart because I'm just really, why can't I have the experience other people have? You know, and it's like we walked by the other accessible section that had the raised seating for the wheelchairs so you can see above people. There were spaces that were free. You know, there was a lot of space where I could have just sat and they could have stood in back of me or something, you know, but no, they want to honor it. They want to give it to me. So I was like, sorry guys, I know we drove all the way down here 2 hours, but I'm not going to be able to enjoy myself. I can't see. What's the point when I can go on YouTube and click and watch them?
Yeah, you see their faces.
Right.
Yes, it's back of some tall guy's head. Yeah.
I went to see Janet Jackson at a venue in Grand Rapids that I've never been to. I will never be back to that venue because their accessible seating was on the floor seating first of all, where the people stand up. And there was like 2 sections of people in front of me. Literally could not see Janet the whole time. I had to watch her on the screen in the corner.
Oh, man.
Oh my gosh, that same Adam Lambert concert, remember? They, despite you, because, okay, so when we had VIP tickets, we had like front row access. They would not allow Lace to be in front row. So
Why?
Lace and another one of our friends had to go in a different VIP section. Like,
which was, I mean, the whole venue is you can see very well. It's very small, very intimate. But yeah, we had to go to like another section that was kind of raised where I could still see, but my wife and my best friend are up there seeing Adam 5 feet away when I'm just like, I paid for this experience too, you know?
Right.
Right.
Well,
So-
and the thing is that we were getting like mixed messages. Like one person said, well, you could go up there, but another person was like, no. But then like a year later, or it was more than a year, it was like 3 years later, we went and saw Mike Shinoda at the same place. You were allowed down there with us, but because there were people in front of us, we couldn't see, even though we were like right next to the stage.
Yeah.
It's like people just don't think about that, and it's ridiculous. Okay, so I am like losing track of the comments. I apologize, everyone. Let's see. Kaisena just asks, why is there so much ignorance surrounding disability? Privilege. That's really what it is.
I want to know why people, if they want to learn how to, I don't know, fix a garbage disposal, YouTube, or go on Google and just type in, how do I fix it? But they won't type in, what is cerebral palsy? Or what is MS? They don't have time for that.
Or what inappropriate questions should I not ask a person who's disabled?
Right.
Yeah, like, what's wrong with you?
You know, and it's funny, like a lot of the times too, like even with people like in my family that have bought like brand new houses, gorgeous brand new houses, but it has tons of steps everywhere. And I'm like, what's going to happen when you get older and you're not going to be able to do those steps and you're going to be in the wheelchair? How are you going to navigate your house? And that happened with my grandparents. They built this brand new, beautiful house, but there were steps everywhere to get into everywhere. And I'm just like, this isn't going to fare well in like 15, 20 years because like I've been in their house twice because their house is so hard to get into. Yeah. Like it's just it's ridiculous.
Yeah. I think people do that because they kind of live in denial, you know, oh, it's never going to happen to me, or I'm never going to grow old. And like my husband and I, we actually, when we first got married, we lived in a townhouse. And it was a 2-story townhouse. And one really early morning, I was going downstairs, and I've been down those stairs 1,000 times, and I fell, and I got hurt. And ever since then, my husband is like, we're never owning a house with stairs. And so we bought our house. We on purpose bought it because there is a basement. All right, so there's stairs on the basement, but like everything is on the main floor. And if we never needed to move the laundry up, we could. There's we just have to run a pipe. I mean, yeah, we pre-planned that.
That's very smart of you guys to do that. You know, that's very, very smart because a lot of people don't think about that. Oh, it's not going to happen to me. Nothing's going to happen to me in my life to, you know, and make me not be able to walk. I'm not going to get old and have to use a walker and a wheelchair. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah. In both of our families, my husband and I both, we have quite a few people with, it's a myriad of disabilities. Like my father-in-law, before he passed away, he suffered from post-polio. So he was in a walker. And at one point we did try to do an Amigo, but his house was not Amigo accessible. So he had to use this little stinking walker. And at one point he just became bedridden because he couldn't move around.
Yeah.
And I had an aunt who was born back in the day. She's passed away now, but she lived into her 80s, which is really amazing because what am I explain? My aunt was born at the time they labeled it as mental retardation. I know we don't use that term anymore, but that is what she was labeled at when she was born. And she was also born during a time when if a child was born with that, they were taken away from the parents and put in an institution, and that's what happened to her. She was raised in an institution. But you know what? I'm going to try and say this without crying. Not going to work. Never was a sweeter, more honest human being. And she outlived all of those bastards that said she wasn't worth anything. So, sorry.
Okay, you're going to make me cry.
You guys are making me emotional.
Sorry.
I got like goosebumps and I'm like tearing up.
Oh, yeah. I wrote a poem about her. I called it The Paper Garden because that's what she was. She was a paper garden, just beautiful and innocent and just a wonderful human being. Never was a better person born. So,
and see
somebody tell a joke, please.
Well, no, it makes me think about how many people out there are like her, but are, silenced or minimized or erased by ableism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad, historically speaking. It's sad to see that it's happened. I mean, I feel like there's been momentum, right?
Mm-hmm.
But again, what accessibility means for people who are abled versus those who are disabled, completely different meanings and understandings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let me see. I did have discussion questions. Oh, we should talk about, we have about 15 minutes left or so. Let's talk about inspiration porn really quickly.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Lacy, what's inspiration porn? You were the one who taught me what it means.
Well, I actually found it. I quoted from a Forbes article that I found. It's inspiration porn provides kind of a superficial pleasure and gratification for the viewer, while objectifying, often harming the most passive subjects being looked at. So a lot of people with disabilities get objectified and demeaned in the, inspiration porn. You see the videos of the St. Jude's kids or the Shriners kids, and they just, this person's just so great, and they just act like everything's gonna be okay and everything's so good, and it's just really. And a lot of times people in those videos don't realize what they're getting themselves into when it comes to that kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I have a bulleted list. It's basically sentimentality or pity. It's an uplifting moral message primarily aimed at non-disabled viewers, and disabled people anonymously objectified even when they are named. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I hate inspiration porn. There's nothing worse that I loathe. And, I've even had to teach my parents what it was, because my mom would be like, oh my God, I love those commercials. They're so great. And I'm like, no, they're not. Because it doesn't depict what that person goes through on a day-to-day life, their day-to-day life.
Right. Those commercials are made for financial reasons, to bring people. Or Arpi earlier said, Autism Speaks is a perfect example of ableism. It's also the perfect example of inspiration porn. But for Autism Speaks, and I'm sure if Cindy were here, she'd definitely agree on this. For Autism Speaks, they appeal to the inconvenienced parents of autistic children. Right. Ignoring completely the voices and experiences of autistic individuals. So yeah, it's really glaring. It's really glaring.
See, until this, I had never heard of it before. So
it's an unofficial term that was coined, but honestly, a lot of individuals in the disability community are using that now because, it's a thing. And, honestly, I don't think people realize it's a thing, and they don't mean for it to come off as offending or anything like that, but it kind of really does. It offends the person that has to deal with that kind of stuff.
Well, it's minimizing.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes, you mentioned infantilizing. It infantilizes the individual, right? Because people are very they're very open and in tune and focused on like
Mhm.
children who are misunderstood or who are, you know, suffering, right? And people know that that's like what draws people in, right? Well,
Another
institutions know.
Yeah. Another good example of that would be like, let's say, just some random story about a high school student that has Down syndrome, let's say. And they got prom king or prom queen because of people feeling sorry for them. And it's like, that's nice and all, but you don't need to like do it out of pity. You know, they deserve more than that.
Right. It's more about the motivation. I mean,
Right.
if he was super popular, you know, and yeah, you know,
Mhm.
obviously make him prom king, but don't do it because, oh, you poor dear.
Yeah.
We're gonna give this to you as a gift because you just deserve a gift because you're disabled.
I hate that so
Yeah.
much. I hate it.
It's ridiculous.
But so I'm on the right track with that,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah, yep, that's exactly what it is. And I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve to be king, you know, or they deserve to be queen, you know, because they probably do, because they're probably better than 98% of those students, you know, but to do it out of pity or like, yeah, like you said, oh, I'm just going to give you something special, you know, like, because you deserve it because you're disabled.
Well, and it's all just to make them feel better or to feel more comfortable with that person.
Yeah, to make them look good too. Like, oh, look what I did. I did a good deed. Like, no, actually, you just demeaned that person.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
No,
and it happens so often. Anyway, Heather, what were you about to say?
I was just going to say, I will say is probably one of the coolest things about doing this show is I have learned so much. I mean, just listening and reading the comments. Just so you know, guys, if I don't ever comment on what you're saying in the comments, it's because I've got our list. I have a very small screen. So I have our list of things we're going to talk about covering the comments. But
same.
Yeah,
well, that's what I'm here for. I'm like the Vanna White of comments.
Yeah, tell us what they're saying.
Yes, thank you, Vanna. But yeah, so I've learned so much from like the comments and the stuff. This is cool.
Well, and the truth is, like, well, that really makes me happy because honestly, since I started doing this show, like, I have felt the same way. Like, I've learned a lot about so many different topics and different other people's perspectives, you know, and even Lace, like from you, I've learned so much over the past few years. Like, I never knew what inspiration porn meant, but when you like mentioned it, you're like, yeah, I was like, yeah, people kind of do use inspiration as like a bargaining
I don't blame people that don't realize it because they're like, oh my God, that's such a good commercial. Like, it just touches my heart. And it's like,
but we don't realize it though because of
but then
our
when
privilege.
you explain it to somebody, they're like, oh yeah, that's what they're doing. That's kind of wrong, you know?
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. Like, they're like, again, like what we were mentioning, like inspiration isn't necessarily a bad thing so long as it's done for the right reasons and so long as it's done not at the expense of the individual who's being used as inspiration. Right? I'll go ahead.
Sorry, I'll just give another quick example. Let's say they use an athlete in a wheelchair that has like just awesome athletic ability, is like, you know, all jacked up, strong, has a good body and stuff, and they praise that person because they're so good because they're in a wheelchair. And it's just like that kind of thing, because not everybody that plays basketball in a wheelchair is like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't really know how to explain it, but that's another thing. Like, you know, they make it out to seem like, oh, you can be this person. Like, you could be that person. And it's like, yeah, but I'm never going to look like them, you know, like.
Right. It almost suggests you're never good enough unless you look like this one representation we have right here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is really disturbing when you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Tiffany says, I ripped someone a new asshole recently because they posted an inspirational article about a man who was sprinting but had no legs below his knees. They posted, if this guy can do it, you can do anything you set your mind to.
Wow.
But that just isn't the case for all disabled individuals. also the ability to afford the equipment he used to get to that point. Yeah, it all comes back down to one's accessibility to healthcare too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's, yeah. Oh, Godzilla, Kiru is here. Hello, my friend. It's good to see you.
And like I said, I know, not all of them are bad, and I know a lot of them have good intentions when they do it, but it just comes across as demeaning and demoralizing most of the time.
Yeah, it does. 100%.
It's just like, stop doing that. Just stop it. Like, we don't need any kind of special attention like that. We don't need people to feel sorry for us. Like, we live this every day of our lives. This is our lives. This is what's normal to us. Like, and I tell that to people all the time. I don't know anything different. All I know is how I do things and how my body works and how I have to do, everything, like, just mobility wise and everything else. Like, to me, it's normal. I don't know what it's like to be like, you or Donny or anybody else, but to me, that's my life and that's how I live it.
Right.
A lot of people don't realize that either. It's like, well, that's all I know. Like, so it doesn't really bother me. Do I get down because I have a disability? Sometimes. Do I wish that I was different? Honestly, no. I do not wish I was different because
good for you, honey.
It's just who I am.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I know. So maybe if I was like a person that was able-bodied and got into a car accident and got like paralyzed or something, maybe then I'd feel that way. But I don't feel that way right now. Like, I don't ever feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, you've spent so much time working towards self-acceptance as well, like.
Oh yeah, we all know that.
Yeah, like, I mean, well, I remember like a lot of the stuff that, I mean, we both went through crap in like middle school and high school, but like I know like during those like formative years, like it was a long journey. But now that you've gotten to this point, it's like it's almost like you're experiencing some form of like solace in who you are, which is good, good. So let's talk about, now that we have a few more minutes left, let's talk about like solutions. How do we work toward overcoming ableism? So I would argue on an institutional level, okay, number one, obviously employing people with disabilities, because there are still a lot of employers, despite them saying, oh, we employ disabled people, there are many employers who still don't.
Don't
but they
get
will
me started on that.
Oh yeah, they will just find a whole like litany of reasons other than that to prevent those individuals.
They need to hire more disabled people, but they look at us as a liability if something were to happen. Like, I graduated from college in 2007. I graduated high school in 2004. I have a degree in computer science and administrative assistance, basically like secretarial work. I never once got a job. I can't tell you how many interviews I went to, and they would just see the wheelchair and I'd be like, no. Like, and I know you're not supposed to discriminate, but they do.
Mm-hmm.
They really, really do. And I had somebody that really wanted to hire me. He was really nice, but he come out and told me, he's like, my office is too small for you. And he's like, if something were to happen, I would be liable. And just all this stuff. So honestly, I've never got to use my degree. So I feel like I went to school for nothing. It's like I really wanted to get out there and work and everything, but it just hasn't ever happened for me because people will look at you and they'll be like, oh no, a wheelchair, ew. Like, we don't want that. And they really do need to employ more disabled individuals because they'll learn a lot. It'll open up a whole new conversation. It'll open up a whole new way to look at things.
Well, and also like listening to disabled people as well, like listening to their feedback and being open to change based on that feedback. Like, I know I've worked in places before where like we've had feedback from those in the community about like accessibility issues, and basically it was written down as a note and stowed away for never to be seen by the light of day ever again. And of course their justification was, oh, but our budget, finances, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, you're reducing an entire group of people to a number that's inconveniencing you. Like
Yep.
how is that not problematic? Right?
Yep.
So, let's see. So I did find a Forbes article as well. It says, and I'm quoting, to meaningfully combat ableism, we must recognize the changing attitudes and raising awareness. Though important for their own sakes, it's not enough when it comes to just those two things. We need to understand that we need to tear down structural ableism that keeps so many disabled people unfree, unsafe, and dependent in certain ways, even if they are superficially accepted more than they once were. So like a lot of people will tout the fact that there's progress, blah, 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 but they don't look deeper, right? Like they don't acknowledge the fact that like progress is something that's continual. It's not like you snap your finger and everything's perfect.
They need to also get people with disabilities that work with the ADA laws and their specifications for what's accessible and what's not. And Donnie knows this, and I've told so many people this. If I could be that person that goes around and tells everybody what's accessible and what's not, like, I would love that. Because, able-bodied people are the ones that are building and constructing these buildings and these structures and these accessible whatevers, but they're not. And it's like, you don't have the voice of a disabled person to tell you, like, you're not in a wheelchair, so you can't relate to it, like, I so wish I could do that. Like, that's one of my dream jobs. Like, I don't even know what it's called, but I'm like, just let me at it. Fill me at it. I'll tell you what's accessible.
Right. That would be awesome. You would kick ass.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. So, final question. What advice do you have for people in disabled communities when it comes to navigating ableism?
I would say, well, for the ignorant people and for the people that just are rude, just either politely tell them, like what your disability is or whatever. If they want to know, if you're not comfortable with that, then you have every right to ignore them. Like, honestly, I ignore people. Like, I don't even notice stares or anything like that. I just go about my day. I do what I need to do, So when it comes to that, like, I don't even like giving ignorant people the time of day, to be honest. But if there's like a genuine person that comes up to me and it's like, like, what happened, or like, what's wrong, or I don't know, like, there's just a different kind. Like, there's the people that care, like, they care, that they care, and then there's people that's like act like you're not even there, that you don't exist, kind of thing, So my advice to navigate it would just be to advocate for yourself too. And you need to speak up, and you need to tell people, hey, this is wrong and this is not accessible. How am I supposed to do this? Like, and I've done that to so many places and businesses and just everything like that. Like, I wrote letters. I've complained to people like that this is not accessible. Like, and I feel like if we all came together and worked more on that and did that, I feel like we'd be heard more.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. This has been such a wonderful episode.
Yep.
And I was so nervous.
I know, but you did so great.
I mean, there's so much more I could say, but I mean, I think I've pretty much got what I wanted to out, because I really do want to educate people on it.
Well, we can always do part 2.
Part 2.
Part 2.
Oh my goodness. But I mean, regardless, at the end of the day, and I would say this would be my advice for allies or people who aren't aware of these things, like, don't be afraid to go out and research. You don't always have to ask the questions to the people who are consistently being inundated with this type of thing. Learn, educate yourself, advocate when you're able, and I would say that's how we will make change happen. So,
and I say don't conform to what they want. They can be like, oh well, we can try to make this accessible, or like we can find some way around this. No, it needs to be changed. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, they'll try to like give you like little olive branches to make it seem like it's perfect. I've seen people do that to you. Like I've seen like doctors do that to you.
I mean, it's like Heather said, like at her work, they gave them a little rubber door stopper.
Yeah, a rubber door stopper.
I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Because that's that wouldn't fly with me. I would be in trouble.
Next time that happens, I know who to call now.
They would be like, she's very vocal.
I was literally about to say that because that's kind of like a joke, an inside joke between Lacy and I, because Lacy was literally referred to as being vocal for calling people out. And I'm just like, Lacy, you're being vocal again.
Yeah. I had to go to the hospital for something in an emergency room, and they were treating me like shit, and they were just being super ignorant and stupid, and I was in extreme pain, and I was cussing up a storm. And when they took me to the ER, they're like, we need to put her in a back room. She's very vocal.
My God.
I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like,
and now it's that like forever joke.
Yeah, so Donnie's like, just be vocal about it, Lacy. You should just be vocal.
You know, I think if anything, what I've taken away from our episode tonight is that treat people like they're a whole person, but build the damn ramp.
Exactly. It doesn't hurt you to build a ramp. I mean, we didn't really touch on this, and I know that the episode, has to get done with, but like the ADA laws, they can only build what's accessible after the year that it was passed. So anything before that, I think it was like passed, like what? Like 1990 or something like that, something to that extent. So anything built before that, all the buildings and stuff, they don't have to be accessible. They don't have to have ramps. They don't have to have elevators. They don't have to have room. Like my town that I live in and the town that Donnie's from, I can't go into the majority of the stores downtown because they all have steps, or their doors
basically medieval castles,
or their doors are like this narrow. And it's like, well, I can't give you business. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I've lived here my whole life, and I've only been in maybe one or two of those stores my whole life.
Yeah. I definitely feel a part 2 coming, because I just thought of like 3 more things we could talk about.
Yep.
Well, we will put this in the books for a part 2, because this is an important topic and it needs to continue 100%.
Yeah.
Well, friends, go follow Lacy on Twitch. Go follow Lacy on Twitch.
Go do it.
There are links in the description section of this video. Of course, click like on this video. Subscribe to my channel if you have not yet. I don't know if why you're here and you haven't done that yet. Come on. Go check out Heather's channel and Facebook, please. All of that stuff is down in the description. Lacy, thank you for being here tonight.
Yes.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
You rocked. And Heather, thank you for being my wonderful guest co-host. You rocked as well.
Yes, and it's nice to meet you, Heather, and I'm so glad I got to enlighten you.
I know. It's like I said, it's one thing to meet you on Facebook, but this is amazing. Yeah. Only would have been better is if I could have seen you in person giving you a hug.
Oh, I love hugs too. I'm a very huggy person. Ask Donnie.
Oh, I'm a hugger, definitely.
Same.
So if we ever meet in person, expect one. It's coming.
Okay. Well, we're definitely going to meet one day. It's going to happen.
It will happen.
Yay!
All right, everyone. We love you and have a good night. See you next time.
Night, everybody.